almost every year that I've had the show, I've had my friend Chad Brown on at one time or another, and a couple of years ago, he just sort of felt to me like he didn't really want to come on, so I didn't bother him. And then we got back to Belmont, and he yelled at me for a month that I didn't have him back on the show. So my next guest, Chad Brown, will be joining us every year at least once the rest of his life. Even if you retire, you'll be on. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So you got 4 days left. Are you still totally focused on the last 4 days, or are you starting to reflect on your meet a little bit?
A little bit of both. Now that it's quieted down, you get to catch your breath a little bit and look back at the meet we had, but still focused on the last 4 days because some nice horses to run.
And so far, because you do have 4 days left, and you'll be participating, I'm sure, in some mistakes, what have been some of the highlights for you?
Well, starting to meet up with Sister Charlie, winning Diana again was really a special moment, and Guarana undefeated, win the coaching club, and of course the Alabama and the Sword Dancer. I mean, those races were really big, and individually seeing the clients so happy that those horses ran such big races on big days. But the whole meet's been really positive, and there's been a lot of special moments for my staff and my clients and myself.
I think, talking about, you mentioned Sister Charlie, but also Dunbar Road winning the Alabama. Peter Brandt, who owns both of them, Dunbar Road, 36 years ago, he won the Alabama with a spit curl. It's hard to imagine an owner has won the same Grade 1 stake 36 years apart.
Yeah. And I ask him sometimes, how does it, what things are the same, what things are different, and how does it feel now? And he's like, I don't know where the time went. It's like I never left. And you can tell he loves being back in the game, and it was a huge win for him.
Hey, talk about getting Peter back in the game, because when you guys got together for the first time, he didn't have aspirations, I think, to have as many horses as he has now.
No, he sent someone to ask me if I wanted to interview with him, and I went up to his place in Connecticut, and he was in a polo accident, so I went to interview him, and actually he was like getting his knee worked on by a physician, and I just sat there next to him, and he asked me some questions, and he sort of told me, like, I'm not going to be playing polo much anymore, I don't think.
I gave it up after my last accident, too.
Yeah. And this is one of the best amateur polo players in history. He's won the U.S. Open, he was telling me, like 12 times, and you go in there, you see all these pictures and trophies. I mean, he's a fabulous polo player, and he had to give it up, so he said, I'm going to get back into horses, thoroughbreds, but I'm only probably going to get a few. So when I left there, I was thinking, he's not just going to get a few. I saw, Eclipse Awards of, Just a Game and Weya and Gulch. I said, yeah, I started looking around his place. I said, this guy's not just going to get 2 or 3 horses. So we hit it off, and he's become a really close friend and a person I can rely on for advice, both within my business or personally. He's a super guy, and he's supplied us with a lot of good horses.
He has, and he's had some great success. I mean, Dunbar Road, you talk about Dunbar Road, a horse you had hoped to make Kentucky Oaks and felt you could win it, and in retrospect, it's hard not to understand why you would thought you win it, but after you didn't get in, she was the first day, you took a step back and you really pointed for the Alabama.
Yeah, you just have to prioritize what really matters, I think, and I really wanted to get her into the Kentucky Oaks. He really didn't. He's more conservative at developing the horses, and a rare instance where the trainer really wanted to push the envelope and run. Just because, with these 3-year-olds, you only have one chance to do it.
Right.
And when we talk about the Oaks of the Derby, you start thinking, am I going to get back here again with this good a shot? So you want to push and go. But after we didn't get in the Oaks, I said, what really matters is the Alabama. The other races, to me, in between just aren't as good. So we just worked backwards from there, and it worked.
And in the meantime, Sister Charlie was sort of laid up for a while. Were you at all concerned that she would be able to get back the level she was at last year? And she seems to be as good, if not better, this year.
Yeah, at one point I was. She just took a while to come around. She had a few issues. She got sick down in Florida. And, these fillies, if you give them some time off sometimes and you start them back into their season, they could just lose their desire to run. We've had it happen before. And I was a little bit worried until about 2 workouts before the Diana. She worked really good. I worked with Rushing Fall 2 weeks in a row. In 2 weeks in a row, she basically had more than her in the work, and she was back to her old self. And there we knew she was ready. It's it's an advantage of when you have a group of good horses in your barn, you can work them together and get a better line on them going to a big race.
Talking about giving horses time, two horses that have sort of had remarkable years, remarkable comebacks, are Bricks and Mortar and Annals of Time. And Bricks and Mortar has to be one of the most satisfying horses of your entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the highest money earner now, and he just symbolizes really a lot of what I learned and what our team tries to do is, if a horse has a problem, you try to stop on him and get the best people you can to look at it. And when you have, Larry Bramlage looking at this horse who had a complicated problem with his hock in his hind leg, and he did a surgery on him, and it was like a 50-50 chance to get him back racing, and it worked. And then you work with a lot of talented people down at Stone Street in Ocala who are the best rehabbing horses for us, and our farm in Kentucky, Delridge, and they had the horse for a while. And then my team, and then patient owners that have paid a lot of bills every month with the horse not even on the track, and the horse just came back better than ever. And it's a good example for people to not give up on these horses and try to do everything you can to get them back sound and to reach their potential.
And not make a wrong decision and push them when you shouldn't.
Yeah, don't push them when you shouldn't, and always get the best people in each area to try to help you.
And that day, last year you came close to winning all the races at Arlington. Analyze it, finishing second. I believe the Secretary was the only one you missed. Mm-hmm. But this year you got all three of them. It must have been pretty exciting.
It was. I tell you, especially as my daughter Ava with me. So she was the difference this year.
she was enjoying
all the credit.
She was enjoying being in the winner's circle, I could tell.
Yeah, we're really lucky to have the horses to do it. I remember leaving last year thinking, this would have been some feat to get all three wins for our team, and there's no way we're going to be back here ever again in all three races. And then a year later, we had the right horses.
Yeah, one of them was Sister Charlie, who won back, but obviously Bricks and Mortar. And you could never have predicted Bricks and Mortar was there, because even I remember you told me when he finally came back, I don't know if I can get him to race again.
Yeah, for him to come all the way back is even surprised me, and then to get him out all the way to 1.25 miles, and there's a lot of question marks about this horse, but when they have the will to win, and they have that much ability, you just try to stay out of their way. And we just try to put him in races that fit, and he does all the work.
How about Annals of Time? How about the fact that he's come back from his third extended layoff to be as good as he ever was, if not better?
He had like a Peter Brandt break in grade 1.
Right.
The 3 to 6. So
3-year gap between grade 1s. It's amazing.
In horse years, that's about the same. So, this horse too, he was injured, and he had a soft tissue injury in a hind leg as well, a different location, and no surgery or anything, just a lot of time, a lot of stop and go. And again, when you have patient owners that say, hey, I don't want to give up on this horse, do you mind giving him another go at the farm and just resting him? And they say yes. And and I'm so happy that the horse came all the way back and got to shine on a Travers Day stage. And the owners were rewarded for all the time and patience.
And hopeful that you can get him at the Breeders' Cup turf?
Yeah, he's a little more straightforward in that he's going to be 1.5 miles. We tried it for the first time in the Sword Dancer, and it worked. So that's where he'd be going. With Bricks and Mortar, it's trickier because, we have to now decide, do you cut him all the way back to 1 mile, or you try 1.5 miles? So I still am thinking about that. I'm not too sure.
I like the mile. I like the mile. What about Indian Pride? I think she's another interesting horse to talk about. If people didn't see, Indian Pride was a maiden winner Wednesday for the barn. That Broker Maiden, just in an absolute canter, got a 90 buyer. She was a long time getting there.
That's another example. I think we talk about these horse problems, but they're all good stories because they can come back. This filly was ready to run last summer, and one of our best 2-year-old filly prospects, and she got sick on us and actually got a pneumonia, a severe one. Had to send her to a clinic in New Jersey where Dr. Belgrave really worked on her. She was in the clinic for maybe 6 or 8 weeks. And we saved her, and she went back to Kentucky, and I just thought she was going to be bred, to be honest, because it was a really bad case of pneumonia. But the owners called me up in the spring and said, you know what, she looks great. We decided not to breed her. We're going to send her back to you. And thankfully they did, and it was worth the wait.
Yeah, I remember how excited you were last summer. Maybe the Raven run at Keeneland. Todd, your brother, wants to know where she's going.
Throwing right into a stake race is sometimes difficult, but lately we've been doing it with some of these horses, and she looks good enough to do it.
Yeah, she was exceptional. Let's talk about another horse that may be a little more disappointing, not to bring it down, but Newspaper of Record. Probably no horse you came into this season more excited about, and it just never worked out. What's going on with her?
Well, now she's at the farm, no physical problems, just, mental relief, just to give her some time off. It's been disappointing this year, having a horse as brilliant as she was last year. That's the thing with 2-year-olds. Sometimes, they might be really brilliant at 2, and when they turn 3, they change for better or for worse. And for this filly, she just got away from us a little bit mentally. I put her in some situations that, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. So I thought the thing to do was give her the break she deserves at the farm, 90 days in a paddock and just being a horse. And I'll bring her back later on in the fall, and we'll just try to retool her brain a little bit.
Talk about the Travers. You're talking about thinking about, obviously this great day on Travers Day. You won 5 races. You also were excited about 2 horses in the Travers. Was it disappointing, or do you feel you learned from it, or what have you learned from it?
Yeah, every time you run a race that you really want to win, you should take something away that you learned. And the day was great, won 5 races, and I can't complain about that. But if there's a Travers Day card, no matter how many races we won, and one of them wasn't the Travers, you're always going to go home thinking, I could have done a little better. That's the race I really wanted to win. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. But we just didn't have the right horses this year, I believe. I think the horse that won on that day was the best horse, and he ran a great race. And it just I think it's a matter of coming to the race with the right horse at the right time.
All right, Chad. Well, we appreciate you coming and joining us.
Thank you.
We wish you continued success there. We'll probably have it anyway. But thanks so much for joining us. Chad Brown.
Thank you.